How many of you here are from companies that are 100 people or more? What about 1,000 people or more? A couple of you. So if you've worked with organizations that size, or maybe that's one of your clients or customers, you know it's hard to make innovative things happen at companies at scale. That is the idea that we want to talk about. How does a large-scale media and technology company make innovative things happen in the way that startups or a couple kids in a dorm room or a garage take for granted? To help continue that conversation, I'm going to bring out 3 folks from AOL that are challenged with that problem and are tackling it in some really interesting ways. So please join me in welcoming Brad Garlinghouse, Tony Conrad, and Jason Shellen of AOL. Good to see you. We got 2 more coming. Oh. Jason, thank you. Tony, good to see you.
Hey, man. How are you?
Thank you, gentlemen. Please have a seat. So to start off with, I want to start with the cool part first, which is all of you are doing amazing product things within AOL, are responsible for some key initiatives that are the peer to what the most interesting startups in the world are doing. So to begin, what I'd love to do is just introduce what each of you is responsible for within AOL. Brad, you can go first.
So my name is Brad Garlinghouse, and in the shortest summary, I'm the most disruptive leader at AOL.
Jason.
I'm Jason Shellen, and I run the AIM group at AOL.
And I'm Tony Conrad. I run About.me.
Thanks. So first place to start to me is explaining what it is that your products do. I think, Jason, I'm going to let you go first. The most familiar product to a lot of you that we're going to talk about is AIM. How many of you have an AIM account or have used AIM in the past? A good number of hands. Well, the future evolution of AIM is in a lot of ways in Jason's hands. Jason, can you talk about what you do there and what we can expect to see from AIM?
Sure. So actually, I came in via acquisition. We sold our company, Thing Labs. We made something called Brizzly, and we took a lot of the thoughts that we had around group messaging that we were working on at the time and wanted to incorporate that in with what was going on with AIM. But we had a pretty large team there already in place and needed to get them pointed in the right direction. But we're really remaking AIM with an eye towards you should be able to message people. You should be able to get every message. You shouldn't have to worry about, oh, I'm on my cell, I missed that. So we're really thinking about, where should conversation be in 2011, 2012. And we're embarking on a big rebranding. There'll be new mobile clients. There'll be new desktop clients and some fun surprises. And here's actually part of the rebrand. If you want to go to the next slide. Is it up there?
I think we'll bring that up.
Almost. Slide? No.
It'll come up in a minute.
It'll come up one of these days.
But I want to actually understand more about, people have been on AIM, they've been using Instant Messenger. There's probably some kids in the garage somewhere making a startup saying, we're going to reinvent what instant messaging was. That's certainly in some ways how the folks at Twitter felt. They were taking some elements of that. But you have this advantage of scale, right? There's millions of people that have an account. Maybe some of them are dormant, but they have that account.
Right.
What does it look like? How's that different than when you were a couple guys in an office working on a product?
So, I mean, the big attraction of going to AOL in the first place was, hey, we have all this scale, we have all this distribution, anything you work on will be seen by lots and lots of people. And that's great, but we do need to be able to work on it in a fashion that is like a startup. Mm-hmm. So that is difficult. When we got there were about 100 people working on AIM, and we were the outsiders. We were the ones who were jumping in, and we needed to almost restart the culture a little bit. And it's not fair to say, hey, let's impose our culture. So we started, this is called Project Travolta, and we wanted everyone, well, Travolta had, he had a career, and then not so much, and then quite a career. Then there was Pulp Fiction, and so we're looking for our Pulp Fiction moment here with AIM.
All right.
And we got the whole team rallied around this idea that, and we actually started something called the Travolta Sessions, where we got everyone in the company out in Dulles, Virginia. We're based in Palo Alto and San Francisco, and we have some of our team in New York as well. We all converged on Dulles and said, okay, we're going to spend the next 2 or 3 days really thinking about what are some of our goals. And some of the things we were already working on, like group chat, came out of those discussions, but interesting things like an easy way to do video chat. And that's something actually in the last year we've released at AOL.com/AV. There's a quick multi-party video chat that is a 0 install, no account needed sort of video thing, and that was a direct result of one of those sessions.
So just to go real quick, so AIM AV is a little bit like FaceTime, but you don't have to have an iPhone, and you can just be at your desktop and do it.
And so we're rolling all that stuff into the new AIM as well.
So that's pretty interesting. Let me go up a level. Brad, you're in charge of apps, you're in charge of commerce. You've got this mandate that sounds like a fairly buttoned down, well, we got to deliver our numbers this quarter kind of thing, and yet you're getting people who are from great established startups to come in. And the big picture piece, what do you say to them, to somebody who's like, well, I've got a startup, maybe it's going good, maybe it's not, and you think they need to be part of the AOL story. How do you say something to an innovator where it's compelling to them to come to AOL?
So first of all, I would acknowledge it's very difficult to change that dynamic inside big companies. And I think the older companies get, the less risk they want to take. They're almost like human beings.
Yeah.
The older we get, the less risk we want to take. We've fallen and things that bad have happened. But I think the second thing that has happened over time is that big companies, and I know some people in the audience who I work at these, they all have these salary bands. And I think big companies think about compensation the way communists think about compensation. And you've got to be within this band, you got to spread it out, and everybody's got to be kind of equal. And it's like, the reality is, I think that some percentage, we can argue about what percentage, has such a huge impact on the success or failure of a new product. Something like AIM, something like About.me is all about getting entrepreneurial, energetic, passionate people really focused on one set of problems. And the pitch to some degree, both on a hiring basis as well as the acquisition is, listen, Jason was working on Brizzly, it had been working successfully. We could say to him, listen, we can turbocharge that and make sure many millions of people are seeing it, not hundreds of thousands or a million. And I think that is something that obviously is not yet proven for AIM. We're rolling out here, I don't know if we've talked about that, but we're rolling out soon, and we'll see how that goes.
But the track record here is not great, right? Typically when a big company buys a little startup, they suck the life out of it. Everybody watches their clock until their earn out is through, and then they leave. And we've seen this happen over and over. I got a consulting company, we worked with Condé Nast. They had Reddit, and we thought, oh man, that's, they must have lost. Dig one because Reddit got bought by this big company. And then by having a certain degree of autonomy, by following a lot of principles of sort of a virtual startup, maybe even physical separation. I mean, you guys you're based on the West Coast, you're based on the West Coast, so you have some physical distance there. What are the tactics you have to do to give a team enough rope to not get sucked into the machine of the big parent company?
Well, so one of the things I had a pretty long tenure at Yahoo, and one of the things I learned there was watching how some startups faded away and others really flourished. Stuart Butterfield of Flickr worked for me for a period of time, and what really worked for Flickr was letting Stuart do Stuart's thing. And I think a great segue is obviously what we're doing with About.me and Tony Conrad's group is really, I view part of my job is to, dare I say, insulate them from the corporate overlords and saying, hey, go be entrepreneurial, do your thing. There's a very specific goal we have in mind for what About.me could be and how it could change the internet. And they've been doing that very effectively.
So you're the umbrella to keep the entrepreneurs covered from...
On rainy days.
Right. Okay, good. Before we go into About.me, Tony, I actually want to go back a little bit in history. Your current project, your current product is not the first time you have sold a company to AOL and had the product be promised to be integrated into the great platform, and you were going to benefit by being part of this giant mothership that was going to help you reach scale and all these positive things. And the first time was Sphere, right? And I got a little glimpse into it. It's a product that I knew and used well. Talk to me about that experience. And that was how many years ago now? It's 4 or 5 years ago.
2008.
Okay, so it's been a little bit of time. Contrast to me, tell me first that story.
So we sold Sphere, and we were scaling massively. We actually had a lot of offers from a number of the usual suspects. And we chose AOL because they were, I thought, the most flexible in terms of the way the team would work. We had a bit of a funky distributed workforce culture, and lots of other acquirers want everybody to
So everybody didn't have to work in the one building.
Bingo. And so AOL was, I thought, very progressive and flexible, so I said, let's go that route. But what happened was, 2008 happened, in the fall, shortly after our acquisition. I think AOL was struggling, obviously, in the time, and there was just a real retrenchment across the board. And what it meant was, for something like ours, which really was still, even though it was getting to a very significant scale, was still really kind of in its youth, and it needed a lot of space, to be honest with you, and a lot of support and opportunities to plug into the product line. And those things just, AOL just became very insular, right? It is like a lot of corporations in that time period.
But
so
the reality is you had a good product, and you went to this big company, and it didn't thrive.
It did not work.
Right, and enough so that you went on to do another product.
I did.
And then that one did well, and then just barely out of beta. Was the day after you opened it up?
I think it was 4.
Okay, but the week you opened it up, all of a sudden it sold to AOL again. Right?
Yeah,
That's
but
pretty
it was a very different environment. So as I left AOL, Tim was joining, and it was an opportunity for me to kind of forge a relationship with him, and he asked me if I would stay on as a special advisor, and I did. And then AOL also invested in About.me as a small minority shareholder. And then the other thing that fundamentally changed was, and this is where we connect all the dots, is that Brad actually acquired Oddpost, a company I was involved with back in 2004, 2005.
And Oddpost was an email service, but a pioneer in Ajax that had done a lot of the most innovative user interface pieces.
Really,
and Brad, you brought that in at Yahoo.
That's
Correct.
right.
Yep.
And Brad, I watched the way Brad integrated Ethan Diamond and Tony Schneider and Ian Lamb in them, and it was phenomenal. And Oddpost, I mean, it's hard to argue that it didn't thrive. I mean, it's running the largest webmail service in the world, still today. So, I saw that experience. I had a lot of trust with Tim, a lot of trust with Brad. And I felt like with About.me and profiles, if you're going to win, you have to really get to scale. And I fundamentally believe that About.me can be a household name. I really do. And that's different than what I felt about Sphere.
Okay, when we were talking earlier this week about this conversation we're having today, I did mention in New York, we probably have a disproportionate footprint of people that are aware of About.me, because it's in every cab that you get in, there's the ads for AOL, and then they talk about signing up for the service. So that's kind of nice distribution. That seems to be a little bit of that, here's what a big company can deliver, right? You weren't doing that when it was a couple of folks.
It is. I think you
in a
have
loft.
up on the screen just some of the things that we've been able to do. So we're not even a year old yet in terms of the market. I think we're one of the fastest growing social media sites on the web over the last 5 years. And part of that is we get to do cool things like billboards. It's like, get to put Kevin Rose up on a billboard. Like who gets to do that as a startup? And then what happens is that creates online virality. We were in taxi cabs. If you guys are driving around this week in taxi cabs, you'll see our ads. We just did a thing with Times Square. We've done activations at Shoreline. It's tremendous in terms of the fire hose that the platform has put against us.
But would you ascribe this to essentially regime change? As you've got someone that you trust and you've got a relationship with to take care of, to be an umbrella from the rest of the kind of corporate stuff raining down.
Brad doesn't even have my cell phone. Joke. Laugh.
I thought I did.
But so you're saying it's enough that you have friends in high places or friends in the right places, or that there's an attitude in the company to say you're going to have enough.
I've been around for a while, longer than I like to think, but I've seen a lot of acquisitions, and I think one of the things that you do is you handle that stuff right up front. And with Brad, that was a very fluid conversation, because I already knew his style and he knew my style. And what's paramount to me is I have the freedom and flexibility in order for my team to thrive.
Right.
And what that means is that if they don't want to go to an office, they're not going to go to the office. If they want to go to the office, they do. But half my team does, half my team doesn't. He's cool with that. Okay. That has created a framework for us to
So let me go quickly into one important point, which is, okay, what about those of us that have a desk job or in a big company and want to do something great? We've got an idea. AOL just put out Editions. It's a really interesting, compelling tablet app on iPad. It is a news experience that is it's a surprise for those of us on the outside, frankly, that this came from AOL, right? It's not what we'd expected to see. How did that get made?
I mean, Editions, I think, is a great example of the same kind of thing that we're doing with Jason Shellen and his team, and that said, we effectively did an acquisition hire of about 9 people who had built an app called Rally Up. Mm-hmm. And Rally Up wasn't getting a ton of traction. We had been meeting with them, and we had a vision for doing a Flipboard competitor.
And this was a team that knew how to make a product that was good and had a good experience.
Awesome product people. I mean, again, I think what we're doing with AIM and Jason and his team is exactly the same thing. We had a group of people who have very strong product chops, great engineering talent. We said, come in, here's the platform, we're going to leave you alone. You can act as a startup in this environment. You're well-funded. And Editions has been a great success for us. And I think exactly what you said, there's a period of time at AOL where I feel like within Time Warner, we lost our way. We lost our way of having awesome product people like the guys to my right. And I think we're getting that back. You know, part of that is through acquisition hires, part of that is through hiring. But it takes a cultural change. I think these are the kind of guys that drive that.
I think you can also spur it on. So if you are at a big company and you want to do something startup-y, then look at what they do. The things that they do is they don't ask for permission. They huddle. They do things that upset other people. They act like, you know, the only thing that's important is the thing that they're working on right there. And you do need someone, I find it helpful anyway, to have someone like Brad who can say, you know, even people who are well-intentioned or trying to help slow you down as well. So additions, aim, you know, we say no a lot to help, because it will slow us down as well.
So it sounds like the takeaway is, regardless of the size of the organization you're in, you got to have the passion level as if you were in a startup bootstrapping in your garage in order to get some great results out of it.
Absolutely.
So Tony, Jason, Brad, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all.